the way that I tend to speak is to say what I want, but all of it is up for discussion, right? Just to make
that's totally fair.
Okay.
Good way to do it.
I want to, and I'm also trying to do this with my own reader Vision OS application, which may or may not be realized. I don't know. I want to be able to have a document that I can read one page at a time initially, and move it somewhere really comfortable, which is turning out to be more complicated than I realized, because there's the whole 1.4 meters or whatever reading distance.
Yeah.
I don't actually think that's correct.
Not with our resolution, I don't think so.
No, we need to really play with that.
No.
But it needs to be, I need to be able to put it somewhere, and then through a really simple action, turn pages, right? And they will, through whatever animation. That is important. Once we have that, because all of this throwing things about and stuff is very Adam. It's cool. He likes those things, and
it's back to the spectacle a bit.
Yeah, and that's nice, and maybe that could be a way to throw it back to the library or something, right?
There we go.
But I do. Once we have that, then we have a 2-page view, and I think beyond that, what will be, without playing with the actual text, the cool thing will be to have as many on the sides as you want.
Just keep expanding.
Yeah, like accordion type thing, and or huge on the wall so you can see all the pages, right? To me, that is it.
Well,
for version 1.
Since we don't know where the walls are right now, you can do the scale to really large and then throw it, or do the shove it away, and then it is kind of big on a wall. So that's sort of there. But we don't have.
Right. We'll define the wall. We will test and say how many meters away it is, even though there's no real wall, because it's going to be VR anyway.
We'll have some rough model maybe we put in for that.
Or maybe it just hangs in space.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
That can also work.
So how much work will the accordion effect be? Can you estimate? I know it's a ridiculous question.
It's so hard to estimate right now. It's definitely feasible. The big issue with it right now, I think, is how do you do that in gesture? Do you want to? You were kind of doing this, a swipe.
For pages.
Right, but that's something that triggers by accident all the time. You just move your hand by to grab something else. Oh no, I just swiped 3 documents. So it has to somehow be a very definitive gesture, something that you did intentionally. On say an iPad or a phone, it's easy because you touch it and there's a physical contact. In VR, it's just space, so you accidentally get your hand too close all the time. It's been, even with the current gestures we have, they've been refined quite a bit, but even then they still trigger sometimes by accident, and they used to trigger a ton by accident.
How much eye tracking do we have in WebXR?
None.
Okay.
WebXR does not get any of the eye tracking information because of security.
Fine. Okay, because I was thinking we could have like a thing underneath to show progress there, and you could look at it and then it knows you're intending that.
We've got camera rotation. So you could do face the center of the screen, so it would be like turn your head to look at it. That's a common thing that's done.
There's another thing we can do is if we have a thing on the side, maybe a triangle, maybe if you just tap that, it goes to the next page.
Yeah.
But if you grab it, you can make
pull
more
it.
pages.
That would absolutely work.
Okay.
Now that would be another like visual thing in this screen. Every document now has 2 little things on the side, or 4 if you want to also have up.
In the way that I envisioned basic interaction in the beginning was there will be nothing, but when you reach, as it is in the Quest actually, suddenly there's a shimmering and you can see the handles.
You get close enough to it and it shows up.
Yeah.
I like that.
So that's quite nice, but I don't have a problem with the page turning being you have to point towards it. If you can't touch it, that's okay, but it's not going to be triggered by just doing this. It has to be somehow across the page.
Would it be, say, because if it's a grab to pull, right, that's fine. Maybe it has a little bit of a snapping, so if you pull it a little bit, it doesn't do anything, but if you pull it a lot, then it like jumps. That could make sense. So a touch or a faint grab is next page, and then a full drag is load more pages next to it, essentially.
Yeah, all of this we need to just experiment. I mean, one of the early thoughts I had, which was unrelated to realities, was this to open it up, right? But these are things we're just going to have to experiment with. But okay, so let's say that for the sake of argument, we roughly have an idea of single document interaction.
Okay.
But it's single meaning single page plus multiple pages. So let's go out to the library, right? So we do this long press or whatever, and we're now in a sphere.
Right. And all the open documents are hidden. Presumably.
Yes, all the open documents are hidden. And for the sake of argument, again, let's say that this library is a collection of map nodes. So if we used, like the wedges, so each wedge is not currently like a cartoon rendering like we saw on the illustration, but it is a selection of nodes. Maybe it's labeled really nicely or whatever. So that's one way you can kind of quickly go in. And it can actually be the same. No, if it's the same, it's kind of a clunky way to change view. We don't want that. So, where is the library? Right now, conceptually, the library is actually here, and you blow it up.
Right.
Do we want it maybe to be in the distance and it goes forward? Where should it really be?
I mean, you're talking about like an alternative to having it be on your wrist?
No, I'm just talking about throwing everything away for a minute and just thinking where it is conceptually.
Or if you go the other direction of it's far away from us, and we can like pull it in to see the library and then send it back out once we grab what we need. It's kind of the opposite of the wrist.
That's probably better. So it's exactly the same but opposite.
Yeah, except then you don't have a gesture that links to it so easily.
Yes, you do. Exactly the same.
You
You do this and pull, and then the room collapses in on you. That's nice.
Well, hold on. So then you're saying that the space you're in collapses, and maybe the space you're in collapses and goes to your wrist, and you're normally inside of it. And if you use a library, you pull it in, and it's on your wrist now. So it's only on your wrist when you're in the library, and then you can send it back, and that's the room you're in. Basically, this thing isn't the library anymore.
Yep.
This is the immediate space you're in.
Kind of. I'm thinking, let's say we have a few documents, and one document in front of us, for sake of argument. And then we do this, and the room from huge gets to be more room size rather than universe size. The document we had will now go to its library position in the library. And if we choose to just immediately go back to the same library, just do this again and expands, and the document goes out from that library wedge.
I don't know if it makes sense to get smaller to have more information.
No, it's to reach the information.
Okay. And when you say it goes to the wedge, you're saying it stays as a visible PDF that you had, and it moves into like a bookshelf almost?
Yep. Not sure. The problem we have is that we can expect the user after a few years to have hundreds of thousands of documents and thousands of collections, so we can't think about it too simplistically.
I don't think the web can run that many, like no matter what you do. I don't think you can have hundreds of thousands.
It will. Or we'll make a native app.
Okay.
But conceptually, we need to be open for it more than,
Now, you could render a lot more if they're not all rendered as a PDF just yet, right? Adam's had some great demos that show the home page, like the front page of the document. And he renders out a whole bunch of them, and that's great. But you don't know which one's which, right? So you still need a title with it.
Don't think like a developer now. Just pretend we have supercomputers and can do everything. I know that's a bit of anathema, right?
Okay.
But just conceptually, it is actually difficult because we're talking about potentially organizing vast amounts of knowledge.
Right.
Because this library space may one day be your photo collection as well. Units of things that can be shown in a library over time we may want to incorporate. So it should be able to conceptually hold incredible big numbers of things. So what we decide on for the shape of the library will have constraints and affordances, obviously, right?
But in reality, the shape of the library is arbitrary,
Yes.
Because we're just talking like, where does the user think they are going for the library?
Mhm.
Because all it is it's another of the same space you're already in. It just looks different. You have the same infinite canvas as you would in VR. It's just, does it shrink in? Does it expand? Does it do neither? Does it like fly in from the distance?
So we probably need to build it in a way that is very, very upgradable in the future, conceptually.
And that shouldn't be too hard if you just push them further away, the more things you get.
Yes, and also if we have a cylinder rather than a sphere, just to make it a bit easy, then there's no reason somebody in the future can't take our stuff and make it into a different shape. But like you said, we have to decide: is the universe small or big when we're not using it, when we're focused on a thing? And both of them have, also there could be different universes, different libraries, which becomes difficult again. So the thing is, I define a library as a collection that someone made.
Yeah.
Not just random documents, right?
Right, someone you put them together.
Yeah.
Gathered them all.
So if it's the user's library, those are the documents the user, one by one or in a batch, decided these are going to my library. So it won't be that huge.
Right, it'll be curated.
And if we look at the ACM, for instance, that's also not that huge a library, even over many years, because it is curated.
I think that's the one we'll be using mostly as our prototype for this. That'll probably be the biggest we're working with, I would assume, for now.
So what I think we should do is optimize for as we've kind of discussed, a corpus and your own library, and an indication of the universe beyond. Basically a web search or something, right? When you get a document. And we do that in a manner so that maybe even in the control panel, let's say on the rights, and we have settings there, we have open a completely different library. So it becomes very much more boring and mechanical, so that the interaction with the sphere or the cylinder or whatever is really within our chosen world. But if we want that chosen world to be completely different, that is also possible.
Yeah, you'd want to be able to change libraries. I feel like that would just be done in the menu. That when you're inside the library selection screen, whatever that is.
It might be done in our little console thing. Or the point is,
or it could be done on the computer before it sends the information to the headset.
Yes, in other words, we don't have to design an infinite library through gestures and spaces now. It's just not necessary. Right. So what we're talking about is you put your headset on and you click on the dot, and if you have it already documented on computer, it appears. The space you're in might be the college library. It is whatever 3D space we design. We're just going to have to figure out something. I'll do some more research. Yeah. And then what we had with this to summon the actual library. Do you want to have the whole world in your hand? Or do you want to have it outside? Where do you want to have your library?
That's the question, right? It's do you expand it or do you shrink it? From a user perspective, it's easy to have it expand from your wrist. And that's kind of like a portal. The sphere becomes a portal to some space that you can grab things from, take them out of the library, and then bring them back to your reality, which is still in the headset, but it's the more grounded place you're in. As kind of like a portal to access an item, it's essentially an inventory. It's very gamey.
Let's do it a completely different way, just for the sake of argument. One of the little sci-fi tropes is you have a hologram coming out of your hand, right?
Right.
So imagine you're dealing with your document, blah, blah, blah. You do this. What happens is this now projects your home graph. So we don't have a sphere anymore.
Okay.
Right? It's just a graph. Your document is still here. You can choose to hide your document. Maybe a gesture like that, it hides away or something. And then when you have this graph, we now spend more effort on controlling that graph, so that your home graph may be just 10 items or 3 or 2,000, point, depending on the user.
Are these the defined terms you're talking about, or we were talking about earlier? This is the graph.
This would probably be the desktop finder graph, right? So each one of them wouldn't be a book or anything for the basic, right? One of them may be open timeline. This is why nesting is so important.
This is more of a menu.
It's much more of a menu. But if you choose, you should be able to have a ton of things. Like one of the things I really want is you guys over here. Now, each one of you is a node. Maybe you're represented by your name, maybe a picture. So that if I want to deal with books, but if I want to see what you're doing, I have you as a person there.
And you can see our library.
I can touch your head, and either it'll show that you published something, or they have a message, an email for me, or that I can see your library. So it becomes a way to interact through people rather than systems, right? Maybe over here I have something different, but if we do the data structures right, the end user should be able to define these.
Yeah, that wouldn't be that difficult. You just have a server where you have like friends you add, or collaborators, whatever you call them. And all it would be is when somebody takes their library and says save, there'd be a check mark where it's like make public, and if you do, any of their connections get a notification, and you can then access their library, which then just downloads and sends it to the headset.
All automatically, of course, hopefully. Continuous, but with the user
privacy,
choosing,
you'd have to choose to publish it, but yeah.
Yeah, and you would choose what group to share it with. Yeah, all of that good stuff. So it's really annoying that we can't start with AR because it's popular. Plus, it means we don't have to worry about the room. But
yeah, we do think it's coming. What, like you said, within a year for the vision?
Okay, why don't we fake it and just start with 360 photographs of a few locations?
Just have that?
Yeah, so just have that and not get too hung up on the spaces, because someone with my tendencies could spend a ton of time talking to Brandler what to do in Blender and just get whatever.
And it will look better because you don't have a ton of great lighting options inside of 3JS. So it will end up looking kind of cartoony no matter what you do.
Okay.
So that being said, I think that actually kind of answers our sphere question, if we're still doing a sphere. Because if our end goal is AR, right? And we're going to fake AR for now. What's that? Oh, nice. If we're going to fake AR right now, so it's going to be the same idea of it's in your space, right? Maybe we have some pre-built 360s that people can select if they don't have AR supported in their headset.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a picture now and send it to you in whatever format so you can experiment with that.
Cool.
Okay. I'll just take it maybe from Deanie's seat or my seat or whatever in here. And we get a feel for what that might mean. And then we, if that looks even okay, we don't need to worry about that for a while.
Right. Now, what I was trying to get to, though, with the sphere, if the idea is that our space is AR, we don't have control anymore of scaling that because it is an actual space. So we should go back to the sphere expands rather than the sphere shrinks, because we can't shrink an actual AR space. We could shrink the fake version of it, but because it's pass-through.
Let me just think about a lot of aspects of that. So one aspect is we need to be able to lower the contrast and brightness of the room for when we work. That can be faked by just having two pictures.
Right.
You toggle between them.
Yeah.
So that goes a little bit towards addressing that. You can't make the room go like this in that sense, no. So we should probably have it, you're in the space, you've got your thing, you do this, you get your thing here. Maybe this thing is a bit more interesting. Maybe it's split, or maybe, it could be very French cartoony with a little thing sticking out of it or whatever. It doesn't have to be a rectangle. It can have let's say
you can look whatever it likes, yeah.
Yeah, you can tap it on the side and that turns it into a library. We can play with all kinds of it.
Right, if we don't want to have the big, new space for the library anymore. Just have the menu be the library. But the library's going to be big. You do need space to display all of that.
Okay, so let's look at it another way. Through some means, we're now in the library.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a library that shows primarily documents. And we have a document over here. We take that from the library and we indicate that we want to interact with that document now. Then the library should either fade, move, or stay, right?
Yeah.
There are cases you may want it to stay, like you want to grab one, read, do that. So have you seen some of the mock-ups I did where you have your document, you have the graph in the background on the wall, so to speak?
Yeah.
Maybe we should just stick things over there. And then if you don't look at it for a while, even with gesture
kind of
head.
fades out a bit.
Yeah. Just make it that simple. And we still have the control access to the Fabian watch.
So now you're saying maybe have the library always there, but just kind of like mostly invisible.
Yeah.
And then how would you get it back?
What was that?
Slack notification.
Oh, as long as it wasn't a camera. That was odd. Yeah, I could, so this thing to move things around. Yeah, I mean, okay, so we
may not even need that, to be honest.
No, but some sort of a gesture. If you don't pay attention to your document, you do this, then the library the whole thing comes towards you.
Or just some gesture to pull it up. Yeah.
Yeah, because
so then ditch the wrist entirely, or still have that tap for the menu.
That would be. I imagine the wrist thing to change views or to select things like hide all people, show all people, go into timeline view. So that's how you should be able to select one item and maybe even move it. Absolutely, right? But this is the global ones. This is the equivalent of author's control click menu.
Yeah, so this is just switch tools, things like that.
Yeah, this is to turn on your panel.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which then has the tools.
Exactly.
So that's staying the same.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. It's just the long press may not be a long press anymore. It might be a pull, is what you're saying?
Yes.
It's less intuitive, but it works better for the pull closer. So if we go that route, it could still work.
So imagine you have it with the finger to move it, right?
Yeah. Well, that just moves a single document.
Yes, but imagine if you are... Was that laser pointed?
What do you mean?
When you do this towards a document, is there a visible line?
Yeah.
Right. So if it's not a visible line to the document, you're now interacting with the library. You do this, you move the whole library.
So if you miss...
and if you just move it a little bit, it jiggles, and we'll have that kind of a snap thing, so you don't just accidentally move your entire world.
The way it has right now, because that could work. I think you get a lot of false positives, but I can't confirm it right now. I could do a test. Right now I have it so that you can select, and it's not pointing anything, nothing happens until you grab something, so you can kind of like sweep to like grab something even if you miss it.
Oh, well, that's fine. This is exactly the whole point of this research. So that it could mean that maybe you have to library and you have to stop for a bit and do that, maybe clunky. Maybe when you pay attention to the library, there's actually a title that says library, and you have to, and that's your target to pull closer.
If we had eye tracking, this would be a lot easier. Just look off into the distance. Or you could still keep the gesture we talked about before, and it's just a visual thing, where like holding down basically just pulls the wall in, and now you have your library.
So imagine this. We built pretty much what you said, and then we bring a laptop into it. So we have not a laptop, a keyboard into it. So you should be able to now have the keyboard, have this infinite scroll document that I'm absolutely in love with, and your PDF is still here. Right, so you're taking notes, you maybe open the whole thing, you have some things there, something there, you have that thing in the background, but you have this huge thing to write inside. That could be an incredible environment, but it's only going to be incredible if your interaction with your source material is usefully distributed. Right. So that's why we really need to work on the push-pull through whatever means the library. When we extract things where we put them, we also need the means through save layout so we can toggle them quickly. Yeah.
It sounds to me like this is like another one of those options. You said you wanted to brainstorm a bunch of different ways of doing this, and we already have another one now. But it also sounds like because it's so in flux, I probably shouldn't focus on developing it right now.
What I would
the library specifically.
What I would really like to see and I actually think we should develop, and this is something to talk to Alan and, excuse me, Adam and, well, maybe Alan as well, but at least Adam and Dini, is some of the things we need to test is what a graph looks like in a big space in our environment. So what I think would be really, really cool is if I do this 360, give it to in a format that you can use. You put the camera here, and we take in a flat graph. It could be a Illustrator file, I don't really care. But with lots of things, and then we just see where in the space it fits, because either it can be mind expanding or it can be really annoying. And I think that's, even as a self-contained thing, that would be really, really useful for us, because if it turns out that, wow, okay, I'm in an AR space, faked, and I have this knowledge and I have a sense of what's going on there and there, you know, conceptually that should work, but we don't know that yet. That I think would be really useful.
Right. Since we want to go the AR route, inevitably the user won't want to put stuff beyond their walls because it will look weird.
No, it won't. That's not necessarily. I think that's one of the absolutely crazy things about AR, how things become different. And also, okay, so I took my Quest thingy there to my favorite coffee shop in London. I was sitting right in front of a coffee machine, but my display was actually behind it. But because of the occlusion,
right,
it worked.
Huh.
It's a complete mind fuck. But yeah, it just, so I can imagine that, let's say that right now with a 360 photograph, all those beautiful Macs, part of the graphs are actually inside that box. It's totally fine.
Okay. If you don't think that's disorienting, then that won't be a concern we need to worry about.
I don't think it is, but this is one of the reasons I think we should test it.
Right, that's fair. And what's the worst case there? You just decide, oh, AR doesn't work, right?
No.
That's the worst case.
No. There are. This is really important for the Sloan project. There are no worst case scenarios.
I guess it's giving you information either way.
It is something that we'll write up and share with other people. It's like, we've done this. You can try it. Here's the implementation, and it feels wrong, and then we're going to do something else. Maybe one of the things Adam and I discussed was, portals in VR to see AR. You can see a coffee cup or whatever, right? Like a little hole. What about the opposite? What if you're in a noisy office? So, for instance, you're sitting here and you're annoying me. I put up a black wall right here, right?
Right.
Maybe I put up a fake thing there so that it doesn't stick out for me visually. Maybe I just make a flat wall for that rectangle and ignore. So all of these things will be really nice to experiment with.
That's true. Yeah.
So how quickly can you do that?
The adding stuff into space, not in the scope of the project at all, but like putting it into the 3D space, I can get the skybox in fairly quickly. That should be by next week, I would guess.
Okay, so
unless I run into some huge issue.
So what I want is a skybox and a fake graph in there.
By fake graph, are you basically talking about the thing that we looked at earlier that Randall put together?
If you wanted to do that, that would be wonderful, but I'm thinking something even simpler. I could give you an Illustrator file or
just a bunch
SVG.
of nodes that have like connections.
Not even that. I can give you one single transparent vector image that represents the whole thing. It can be that fake.
Oh, okay. So you just want to see what it would look like if it's too confusing with the background and stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty simple.
Okay. Yeah, so if you start by looking into getting the 360 skybox in, I'll try to mock up something for that, and I'll see what we can do.
Cool.
That sounds like fun.
Okay. And this is fingers crossed transparency works inside 3JS. I assume it would. It'd be crazy if it didn't. I know that blending modes work. We got that at least.
You're right, there are some issues with that. I've had some kind of clippy things where they kind of shimmers and stuff. What? The code that Brandel used for that real thing, do you want to have that maybe? Could you take that in?
Eventually, I think it'd be easier just to write something like, if you want it fake, or just to write something simple. I